Hello everyone. I hope you could hear me properly. All right. Let me just go ahead and share my screen. Before that, Mahesh and Avinarji. Am I pronouncing correct? Avinarji?
No, it's Ajit.
Okay. All right. So yeah, let me just go ahead and share my screen and just confirm once you guys see my screen there.
Okay.
Okay. You must be seeing my screen.
Right.
All right. So before we jump into actual HL7, let's understand what is HL7. So HL7 is basically a health level 7, and it's not a programming language. It's basically a protocol that works on navigating or exchanging data in the form of encrypted HL7 events. Now, I'll come into this events. Don't worry about these jargons wherever you see that this is new terminology that I haven't heard of before. But yes, just for your understanding, HL7 is a health layer 7 dataset, which basically works on the high level of OSI model. Now you must be wondering, what is OSI model? OSI model is an important aspect of any software or any tool that we are using into our day-to-day work in software engineering. So let me take you to the deep dive of OSI model first, so that you'd be understanding how these are important and how this is making our life easy, so that you'd be able to make some changes, identify it, and you know make some certain enhancement to the tool or to the system or to the environment wherever we are working on. So OSI is basically, I hope you see this text is also visible to you all, right? Perfect. So this OSI is nothing but it's basically stand for Open Systems Interconnection Model. So this is basically having 7 layers, and HL7 fits into the last layer. That is why it is called HL7, Health Level 7. Now, OSI has multiple layers that I would like to tell you guys. First layer would be physical layer. Second would be data link layer. Third would be network layer, and so on and so forth. But last would be application layer. Before application layer, we have presentation layer. So this presentation layer, so this presentation layer is basically our initial UI that we do into any application. So UI is nothing but the UI that you see in the system here. So if you do some navigation, this is called UI. So this is an UI layer where we do see the product, where we do see the navigation, where we do see the changes that we want to apply, and it's just UI friendly. And this application layer is nothing but the actual application. But again, this is the software layer that we have. Now, where this HL7 fits into, I will come to that. So HL7 is basically aligned to this layer, which means if you do any navigation to the tool or to the software, to the application, you do into this layer, but would be propagate throughout the system using this layer, which is application layer. So let's say if you're using an EMR system, okay, I will come to that. What is EMR or EHR? So suppose there is a hospital called Hospital ABC, and there is another system which is lab, for example. So let's say lab name is Quest. Now, doctor is sitting here, right? So in hospital A, we have a doctor whose name is, for example, the doctor name is, let's say, John Doe. Okay. So Dr. John Day has actually taken one patient called Kim Han. Now, this patient has been diagnosed with some vital care and has to go through a lab test. Now, in US, how it happens, you don't do anything manually. You don't do anything paper-wise. What you do is an electronic process. And that's where you need to have this standard follow. So when you send some data, it has to be some standard, and you cannot just expose your PHI or PII information directly. I'll come to PHI and PII, but the important part is just understand the process, how data flows from one hospital, which is this one, to LabQuest for some certain test. For example, Kim Han has been asked to go for a test by John Doe, who is a doctor, to test yourself with a certain health check. So let's say the check was asked is blood sugar and just simple thing, TSH, which is thyroid check, right? So they do not have to worry about sending this manually. What they can do, they can align a tool here, which is called integration engine, and that carries your HL7 data here. Now, this would be taken care by your system end to end. What this would do, this would flow from here, from hospital, will go via this tool and process it across to the lab. So what lab would receive? Lab would receive all the information pertaining to the patient. Lab would receive patient name, lab would receive patient ID, lab would receive all the date of birth of the patient and all that, all the demographics. Lab would receive the vital care, vital information that doctor has already taken care. Lab would receive information about the tests that he has to run through. Test required. So these are all information would send in just fraction of second. And again, this would be encrypted. Encrypted means you are not exposing PHI, which is protected health information, or PII, personal information of patient. Now, these are two terms that comes into healthcare. I will definitely have this thorough understanding on end to end each and every terminology or module that you see here. But yes, just for understanding, HL7 is a process of having this module ready for you so that you can move it across. Now, since HL7 was developed back in the year of 1996, and it does require a lot of evolution, that's where we have multiple versions. So versions start from version 2.x. So we have 2.x. X is again changing, like 1, then it is changing to 2, then it's changing or upgrading to 3. And now it has been changed to 2.9 and 3.49 as well. So this is something that you should know that HL7 is a main bridge who actually take care of electronic data exchange. So the term is called HIE, Health Information Exchange. So this process is basically handling this data transformation and data moving from hospital ABC to LabQuest. None of the patient or provider has to go. Now, provider here is nothing but John Doe, which is doctor, and the patient that you see, which is Kim Han, he or basically this name belongs to C, so I'm taking that as C. C does not have to go to the lab and get her result out. It would be automatically sent back. It would be automatically sent back to this lab. So this is called bidirectional. Bidirectional. So bidirectional means we are sending out and in with response to the same result or ask, we are getting this bidirectional response. So this is called bidirectional interface. Now HL7 will have both the response aligned with these two systems. Now, HL7 would make sure that these both systems follow the standard process. Wherever the field are required, they are sending it. Wherever the data is needed, they are populating it. Wherever the data is needed, they are transforming it. So this is the standard process of having the data trend, and you could make the changes, transform the data accordingly. Any question? Do we have any question?
No.
Perfect. So this is about the HL7 event that you see, and this is how we can do that. Now, what is HL7? I have already covered. Now, when it comes to how this has been working into the market, how this is evolving, we have multiple versions of HL7. Now, there are certain things that you need to know. So let me pull that. So the HL7 event basically works on different scenarios. So let's say this is an ADT. So in our training, the training that you're going to get, it would be covering all the HL7 events. So these are HL7 events. Okay. So ADT, we have DFT, we have SIU, we have ORM, we have ORU, we have ACK, which is acknowledge, and then we have SIO multiple events, which is 12, 13, 14, and so on and so forth. So this is all HL7 event. Now, you must be wondering what is this terminology? This is basically a event, and this is the event type. So let me take you one simple example of HL7. All right. So the sample that you see is just a test message. So there is no violation of the path that I'm doing. This is again just an example that I'm showing up here so that you all would see what is HL7. So this is a pure HL7 example. And whatever you see in this line, it basically shows you the actual event of that message. So if you see here, this is called ADT that I was referring to. ADT is nothing but it would have admission, discharge, and transfer of a patient detail. Now, how you get it? This is how this has been encrypted through this pipes and through this caret that is coming into the message sample. Now, if you see here, it has a version 2.5, right? Remember, I was talking about some version here, which is evolving day by day as per the performance, as per the need, as per the feedback on the market. So it was the sample that I am showing you, it is in 2.5, and more stable version is 2.7 or 2.7.1 that you could consider. Even 2.5 is fine, but more stable version is 2.7. The version is just for giving you a exact reference. This is just a simple way of having those fields that are not needed or that were needed but are not there that has been evolved. But most of the skeleton, the base structure of the HL7 messages are the same process, the way you see on my screen. Now, coming to the question or information about ADT, how you get it? What is ADT? And how we understand whether this is exactly the one that I am looking for. That's what you're gonna get from this ADT A04. So this A04 says like this is for a new patient registration, and this is called event type, and this is the event of the message. So this entire field is giving you the status of the entire message, what this is carrying and why this is carrying, so that you would understand a vendor technical team When I say vendor technical team, which is a lab, so they would know, okay, this is the data that we need, and this is the information that we have got, and this is what we have to perform. Accordingly, they would go ahead and make the necessary test by getting that sample, and they would be able to test it. So this all moves across the system without having anything in their hand. That's why it is called electronic health record, which is EHR, or electronic medical record, which is EMR. This is why this has been evolved and built by Obamacare, so that no one will have to carry their PHI or personal health information on the paper of sheet. They could simply go ahead and have this electronically processed and they could check it. And there's a lot to know. There's a lot to know on the HL7 event. You would be getting a lot of information on this training. And this would not just cover HL7 messages, it would also cover some quick tech tip that would allow you to fix things faster if you're working in production, or it you allow you to do things development faster. This training would help you to make your skill a top notch so that you'd be able to bring yourself into healthcare market and you could sell yourself with a very good amount that you're looking for. All right, any question?
Yes, this is Azit here. So look, it's about only the HL7 or even FHR also will be getting the training on FHR as well.
Yes, I was about to say that FHIR would definitely be covering. So FHIR, so if you could just tell me, Ajit, what is the requirement? Do you want to cover HL7 and FHIR both?
Yes, like I said, we are three of friends, me, Balaji, and Jaisima. We wanted to cover HL7 and FHR both. And since we are already working on HL7,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and whatever knowledge which you are sharing, it's really helpful for us. But if
Mm-hmm.
about the FHIR, what are the concepts we are going to get at?
Mm-hmm.
And like it'll be very much helpful for us for the FHIR also.
Sure, Ajit. Yeah. So thank you for putting it across. I would definitely help you to cover this FHR as well, but let me give you a short demo on that so that you could also
Yeah,
score on that too. That's fine.
Yeah, yeah.
So,
Hi, this is Raja. Yeah, I'm also looking for the same. I'm also working as a HL7 analyst,
mhm,
and in this training, I'm also looking for FI fire framework and data modeling. If you can say some data modeling, and if you
mhm,
can give some kind of example with EPA, yeah, prior authorization for
mhm,
data modeling on fire, that will be
mhm.
great if you can provide that.
Yes. So, Raja, this FHIR is a different concept, and APA or IFPA or authorization, this is a different framework. But yes, that's fine. I will definitely cover that too. But that would have a in detailed information so that you need to first understand the fire concepts and the
Correct.
bindings and profilings so that you could jump into that, which is again a advanced level of FHIR, I could say. But yes, I will put it generally what I do, I go with base so that whoever is new or if you are new to that era, you would having that fundamental knowledge concepts and then you could advance yourself by just seeing the text. But
yeah.
yes.
Sure.
Even we want that, like,
Mhm.
which if you can start from basics to like
Yeah,
fundamentals to the
yeah.
advanced level. So we are happy for that for the FHIR.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, so let me just share back my screen once. Thank you for keeping safe there, Ajit and Radha. And yeah, this would also helpful for me to create my module customized for you guys so that I can share you and give the exact output and you guys can give the proper feedback about the training and module and material that I would be sharing and covering throughout the session. But yes, so again, Fire HL7 is nothing but the information that I've given above. It's again a very critical to understand. And considering this, I was saying, right, the stable version is HL7. Let me just use this line only. HL7 2.7. So this is the most stable version, which is why what HL7 team or community has done is they have covered a new version just to cover the entire data of the patient. So if you just look into this data or this sample data of HL7, This is just giving the ADT, new patient registration information. But let's understand this same scenario again, where our patient Kim Han was looking for some tests. Before doing tests, definitely doctor would have asked some XYZ information. But instead of asking that, what is the best option to provide better care? So that's the revolution of healthcare. That's the revolution of US healthcare, UK healthcare, Australia healthcare, wherever you could think of about the healthcare, which is running digitally. So when it's come to having this into picture, that how we can propagate all the information to the doctor at the time or at the moment of encounter. I will tell you again what is encounter is, but yes, just understand when patient meets to a doctor, that event is called encounter. So when patient come to the hospital and what don't you think that if patient has all the information, I'm sorry, if doctor has all the information, this would be one of the best care that doctor can give to the patient? I think it would be very, very less time and effort that doctor has to spend on other tests. At the same time, this would reduce cost, this would reduce payment, this would reduce the insurance claim cost that claim or insurance team would be giving the reimbursement to the patient. So that evolution is nothing but a version of change or enhancement to the HL7 message called CCDA. So CCDA is nothing but is again a very, very important aspect on healthcare era that is moved and accomplished, I think, way back in 2020, 2020, 2005 or 2006, and later it has been evolved to 2016. Now, CCDA is nothing but consolidated a clear clinical documented architecture. So we have CDA, which is clear document architecture, and CCDA. So CCDA is nothing but consolidated clear document architecture. So when I say consolidated, this consolidated means it is consolidating all the history of the data, history of the patient. So let's say there is a patient that we have mentioned, Kim Han, right? So Kim Han will have all the history tests, right? So this document, which in the form of XML, will be having all the detailed information about that patient. So John Doe would be having very smooth service or giving best care to that patient on the first encounter itself. Even Kim doesn't have to visit back to the hospital for the same treatment. And this will cost three business services, which is pharmacy. She would not go to pharmacy to buy medicine. She would not go to lab again for doing the unnecessary tests. She would not have to make the extra cost on the billing too. So these are three saving. That's where healthcare analytics come into picture. Okay. So analytics is nothing but just to give you a understanding on analytics. So healthcare analytics is nothing but just give you the understanding that this is something where you would be using the data to identify the risk score, and based on that, you would make sure that patient is not critical. You identify the issue before patient get into that criticality, like chronic conditions, sugar, oncology tests, biopsy tests, and so on and so forth. So this is just to give you an idea how this works. But again, XML is very vague and it's very tough for the engineers who are working on the hospital end. So what, and that's also taking time. This is a large document. Don't you feel that if it has a history of data, it would be having a large document? So I will come to that how CCDA would look at. I will have to get that sample document for you guys. But yes, just to resolve that problem, since it carries a lot of information and too many things to ingest for the doctor, for the hospital, and as well as for the all the included parties there. So what Health 7 community has decided to introduce FHIR, and this is very powerful, very fast, and very much responsive. You just hit to click right now, and you would get a response on the next moment itself. It could be just in millisecond or microsecond, I could say. Now, FHIR is nothing but fast healthcare interoperability resources. And this basically name stands for fast is nothing but it's basically a fast API. So it's API call or REST API call that you would be doing from a server wherever the server data is stored, and you would be framing it. Now, let's say you are working for a hospital, or this time let me give you a best example so that it would be easier for you guys to understand the FHIR part. Now, let's say you are working for a company called Cerner, which is no more. This has been opted by Oracle. So let's say you're working for Cerner and you have your own Spire repo, which is a repository, right? Now, what you would be doing to the market, you would be selling this result or you would be selling this output to any XYZ vendor. So let's say this is hospital. Okay. So what will happen? Cerner would have anybody is talking with a new. Yeah. So Cerner is a company who would be actually having their own repository with fire resources. So this basically HL7 is worked on event, CCDA is worked on sections, entry, interrelationship, and FHIR is work on resources. This is a list of resource that you need to understand how this is important, why this is scanning. And definitely in this resources, you don't have much information. So you need to do bindings, you need to do profiling and so on and so forth. But on the business perspective, you should understand why this is coming into picture and how this is becoming very, very diamond kind of solution to the market. Because this is fast, all data is collectively, report to a portion where they can call into, and they would be able to see that. Now, again, what will happen? They would send some information here, and this would be carrying across. Now, this process that you see, just don't worry about this one. Suppose you have all the resources here. So all resources you have here, resource list. Let me just make it. Yeah. So what hospital? So let's say hospital name is big hospital, for example. Now, this hospital would actually look for Kim Han information. So what they would do, they would call to a endpoint. So the endpoint would be something like HTTPS. This is just an example. Patient. Yep. Okay. So what I'm doing, I am just making Kim information call to this repository. So this is called a request. So what I'm doing, I'm requesting to a server where I can get the patient data of Kim. Now, with this is that you see, it's called response. So this response would be coming back to the same application wherever they're calling to through that endpoint. Now, let's say they are using a tool called Postman, right? So let's say they are calling a tool called Postman or Bruno, anything. The Postman will have data of fire. So this would give you the response output. Now, this would be into your fire data. Now, this all system that you see, if you know the endpoint, it would be very quick. You won't imagine how quick it is. As soon as you click on send, you'd be able to see that response on the next moment itself. Okay. So this is how fire works. This is how fire propagates to the system. Now, let me talk to the resources kind of. So fire is basically works on resources, like I said, and those resources are nothing but these resources that you see. So these are all the resources. So almost 100 plus resources we have in the market, but hardly we use 9 to 10, which is into healthcare interoperability world. Okay. Now this data or the patient information that you are going to get in the form of multiple options. First is XML, then JSON, then Turtle. So most predominantly version of format that is being used is JSON. Now, this is JSON output. So this is again a simple information that you see of a patient. So this is a patient resource that you see, and this is how it would be carrying data. Okay. So this is how you'd be getting carrying data to. So if you see here, this information has a resource type called patient. So if you remember, I said if you want to know HL7, if you want to understand what this message is carrying, you have to go through this event. In the same way, Fire is working. So this is called patient. Patient means patient resource. This would have all the demographic information about the patient. So demographic means which the hospital he has visited to, what is the ID of that hospital, what is the official name of the patient, right? This is again a sample patient that you see. What is the given name, and so on and so forth, given the address, the phone number, the zip code, all that information, everything that you need about the patient, you would be having in this resource. And this is kind of easy to understand to the system, to the application, to the tool that we're using, and to the software as well. This is fast. This is very, very fast because it is in JSON format. Okay. And this is what you need to understand. Now, your work is not to call this resources. Your work is to build this resources. You don't have to call this resources. The actual work which is come is building Fire resources development. Now, how you build it, how you create these resources, that's the critical part. And that's an important information that you need to understand. Now, if you want to build a patient resource, what all information you need and how you are getting, that's an important question that you'd be checking with your initial call when you'd be connecting with the vendors or wherever you are making business. Okay. Now, this is again just one example that I've given. This is just for a high level understanding so that you would understand fire is what and how we are building that and how, what is the history behind the movement. But if you want to know fire better, you should know HL7 best because HL7 is the base. Based on top, it has been converted to a JSON and then it has been built as a fire output. Okay. So if I take this consideration, so this PID segment that you see here, this PID segment is actually converted into these many lines. These PID is nothing but patient information definition. And here you have patient name, right? So patient family name, patient first name, patient formal name, patient official name, patient date of birth. So this is what it has been converted into JSON output. Now, what is this? I'll tell you, but just understand this. If you see, this is a this is telecom. Telecom is nothing but a array list of data that can be contained within this. That's the reason this has been defined accordingly. I will tell you how this is framed, why this is important to have an array, have a list, have a sample, and and so on and so forth in a very easily manner, so that you would understand you would be able to do the development even if you're not from development background. With that being said, I am ready to take some questions if we have any.
Yeah,
Question
I
like
have a good question. So you said, if you can, if you don't mind, I think Raja, right? I mean,
that it
I'm
was
sorry.
me, Raja.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I mean, I joined late. I had another call. So if you could go ahead and share back your screen where you had that, screen that you were showing earlier for me, please.
Wait, I'm sorry. I was a
Oh, okay. So here, you said that there would be a API call, correct?
Right.
So that API call is between the hospital and FHIR or between the Cerner and FHIR. So that particular API call, what method is being used? Like get method, like post method? I mean,
That's a very good question. Obviously, you would be so when it comes to this API call that you see here, this is just a example that I've given. So this is again just a business setup that I've given you an input. But yes, when it comes to this hospital, they would do a simple API call to get that information, which is get method.
Okay.
So they would not be allowed to put anything to the server. They would just be allowed to do the get method to the call itself.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha.
Because
And
they are not the
mhm.
administrator who would be making those developments, right?
Right. But for example, if you just think about different scenario, like to be frank, in the generic environment or in the live production,
Mhm.
if we take into consideration, so isn't it like required for the hospital to post back the ORU via the FHIR, or the ORU does directly go to Cerner and it doesn't go via the FHIR? I mean,
That's again a very interesting question, Balaji. And yes, when it comes to ORU, so this is all different in the fire framework or fire framework work profile or workflow that you'd be doing. So you don't
mhm,
have to send back, but yes. So suppose in the hospital, let me phrase this question on a better way so that it would be aligned to your question. So
mhm,
suppose hospital get a new patient entry, all right? And
mhm,
this patient name is, let's say, test tester, for example. Okay.
mhm,
So this is the new patient that comes into this hospital, and hospital is the only entity who knows about this patient. How
mhm.
they would be able to deploy this name into this portal, right?
Right.
So this is how the collaboration work. They would reach out to Cerner team directly with a business perspective that, hey, since we are using your repository, we are paying you a price for using those repos and storing our data. We have another option. We have another request that you have to pull into your repo so that we'll be able to make necessary changes, calls, and having those identified into our server. So
Okay.
they would reach out to for this business. Again, this would be some sort of cost. This is all related to administrative tasks. But yes,
Mhm,
the question that you asked, it's very good. And this is how you need to make sure that sometime you have to, not sometime, most of the time you would be doing post method as well, because you don't know whether this patient is available or not. Just to build your development, you may have to do some post calls throughout the development, right? So this is something that you need to understand that whenever a new patient comes in, you need to have a post method. So here they would give you an endpoint. Let's say the endpoint would be the same. It's just the method that you, most of the time, endpoint would be the same, but post method would be used for making that patient available to that server.
okay. Okay. So it's technically like any updates that it's gonna make is via the Cerner or any third party integration, to be frank.
Yes, so technically I could say like it's depending on the server that you're making call to. So let's say this is a repo or file repository that you're making call, but this repo is being maintained or built or developed by any XYZ system like HCA Healthcare, Cigna Healthcare, Aetna
Mm-hmm.
Healthcare, Raquel, or XYZ system, or maybe a Maxim. So depending on the repo owner or administrator, so we call this as super admin. Okay. So
Okay.
this admin would have access to make all the changes or addition or conversion or deployment or changes or fixes if that's needed to the server. And this is directly goes to the actual owner of that tool. So if you're working on a hospital, you don't need to worry about this. But if you're working for a company or if you're working on your company that actually taking care of all these items, then you are the only one who would be taking care of all this. You should be having both the endpoints or five endpoints to patch it, to put it, to delete it, to update it, to add it there. So accordingly, you can make that into your endpoint. It's just the method that you need to define, and it's just the process that you need to add it, and you'd be able to populate that data as per your repository. And then that repository would be available to the market. Whoever wants to get data, read the data from there, they can utilize it and they can pay the service for the time that they have opted for.
And the FHIR repo, is it storing all the patient information that is sent by Cerner? If so, what system is that using? Is that using SQL? Is that using, I mean, does that save it as XML file separately for separate patient? I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's a very good question again. So depending on the, this is something which we call is at backend development. Okay. So this is called backend there. And in this, what we do, we consider the data is stored somewhere in the server, somewhere in the application server, or somewhere in the server based on the necessary use, based on the data that they are carrying, based on the volume that they are carrying. Now, coming to the relationship, it's again a data modeling stuff, but still, I would like to answer this with a very precise point because it's again depending on the business. So suppose you're working for analytics, you're working for OLAP. So OLAP is nothing but uh, online processing analytic transformation, and then we have OLTP. Okay. So this is again the process. So OLAP and OLTP. So this is online transaction. This is analytic purpose. So if you're working on analytic purpose, okay. So if you're working on analytics purpose, then you need to worry about relationship, right? Then you need to worry about XYZ, whether the patient is in relation to that hospital or not. And depending on that, you would be using your software production. So let's say you are using OLAP and the tool that you are using here is Snowflake, or maybe you are using Databricks, or maybe you're using simple SSMS or any XYZ tool, which basically take care of the relation database. But let's say you don't want to worry about this relationship. You just want to store the data and make necessary change and making fast as an object. Then you have to use NoSQL. And this is again a MongoDB, VectorDB, and so on and so forth.
Mhm.
So this is depending on the business that you are going to use.
Okay. Okay. So FHR repo will store only the patient health, like PID information, or will it also store the ORMs, ORUs, and everything as well? Sorry, I joined late, so I don't know if this was brought in already.
No, that's fine. Yes, so that's I if you see this this image or this architecture diagram that I have been using it. So this has a list of resources. So this would be carrying all the information. Like it would be having the patient ORM, patient ORU, patient MDM, patient encounters, appointments, and whatnot. So this would
Mhm.
be covering everything about that patient entry. That's the reason you're not depending. So now onwards, your business would not at all consuming HL7 data. So think in this way. So suppose this is your earlier system and this is your new system. So what you were doing, you were using some system to send data from one to another, right? So
Mhm.
so you are sending data from this system to this system using a method called HL7, right?
Correct.
So HL7 would be accepted in this system as well. But now, since you have upgraded your system to incorporate the FHIR, then this terminal or this engine would only know the JSON format. Okay, would
Oh, okay.
only know the JSON, and this would be processing the JSON data as soon as you hit method whatever you want to, and then it would be giving you the output. So that's where the important, transformation. That's where you have to engage yourself and make the development, make the necessary transformation, so that you'd be able to, make the conversion of SL7 into FHIR, and then on the source itself, it would be having the FHIR data for you, and then you can carry it across, transforming it, molding it, and then processing it. So let me just give you what is transformation in a short example. So suppose in this example that you see as a JSON of patient resource, this is again a patient resource that you see as this example. And sometimes you don't need this kind of all information. So suppose you don't need this family usual name of that patient. You don't need this made information because this is not critical. This is something that you don't need to be uh, process across while doing your development, because this is something which is fine if you ignore it, right? For the business point of view, for the testing point of view, or for the patient care point of view. Now, again, on the telecom, for example, you just need the official name. You don't need other thing that is putting across throughout this. So this would make the resource very crisp, very clear, and to the point. And that's where these standards come into picture. So standard means like you need to maintain the cardinality, you need to maintain the specification of fire. And this is what this specification defined to the fire, or health 7, HL7 community. So this has been a very important specification that you need to consider in order to build your resources. So wherever you see this card is nothing but cardinality, which is saying, hey, you need to have this field, but on what basis? You cannot just go and have everything. You cannot just go and have limited things. But at least these items that you see in this example. So just giving you the information for a sort of prescription. For example, let's say you have a patient and he he must or she must be carrying some gender, right? So accordingly, you could
Mhm.
define it. So you cannot just use null flavor. You cannot just use something XYZ. Your value should be aligned within this list that you see in this screen. So this is
Mhm.
what it aligning to the standard. So the end receiver, which is this receiver, would be able to incorporate this data and identify, okay, so if there is female, that's what we have to identify here as a female to that patient or male, whatever it is. So this
Mhm.
is what you have to align with the system, you have to align with the specification, and you can make necessary changes.
Okay. Okay. And so if you just go back to your untitled diagram section,
Mhm,
so here it says like the HL7 is converted to the FHIR, I mean, converted by the FHIR into the JSON and then
mhm,
back in the receiving system. So now is it expected, like, for example, in real world, so, right, your his system is having one section, like consider it be Epic or something, and then you have a hospital system which is doing the actual dictation or whatever.
mhm.
So is it expected that both are licensed with the FHR now? So like why I ask that is, so the JSON conversion like is like, if you think it in this way, where it is like converted to JSON, where the receiving system should convert it back from JSON to HL7 to incorporate it.
Yeah. So yes. So when it comes to evolution or the question that you ask is about the needed or needs of HL7 or FHIR. It's depending
Mhm.
on the system. Okay. So again, it's totally depending on the vendor or maybe a client or maybe a hospital, wherever they want to. But the ask which is coming into the market is FHIR because this is fast and this is again an optimized way of exchanging data and transforming data accordingly because you're not changing anything, but you're doing on the top level of application and you're converting it directly. But why? What would be our task? Our task is to make sure that data is flowing properly from one to another. So data flow should go properly. So it could be from anywhere. So suppose this system is using HL7, but this system is looking for FHIR, right? So you can do that. Even if it's coming from different HL7 event, you can still pull only the necessary information and create all the necessary resources from that HL7 message and build your file resource and send it across to the end system. This is called transformation. So
Okay.
you are transforming data. This would be handled by your transformer, which is integration engine. So I will come to that. What is integration engine? But yes, to answer your question, it's not required, and obviously the evolution is not that fast that we can remove everything because almost
Right.
billions or billions of systems are using HL7 for almost 20 years. And this lift and shift is not just one day of thing. It requires a lot of infrastructure setup. It requires a lot of engineers to be engaged and a lot of changes to the market itself because this is again not full fledged. Let me show you. So you see this resource list, right? So this resource list itself is not you know, normated as of yet. So if you see wherever you see N, which is called normated. So this is the last phase of enhancement of this resource. After that, there is no change needed for the development. So if you see here in this only section, we have this one normative and rest all are
Mm.
five to, so the maturity level is very less here. The maturity is very, very needed in order to make the necessary or actual changes. But yeah, yes, all the necessary items which are needed for making that patient care are normative. But still, it is taking time. And at the same time, since we have all the system which is running on HL7, it cannot be just done in one day. It will be taking time almost near 5 to 6 years at least.
Okay. And does it allow kind of attachment?
Yes, yes, it would. So if you do a profiling, you can attach a media type, you can attach. So there is a resource called, let me just show you, document reference. So if I go to document reference, all right. So you see, this is a simple example of document reference. So let me take you to the example so that you'd be able to see. So here we have a called format. So this is one element that you'd be having into the FHIR. So if you see here in the, let me just get it. Maybe this would not have the, okay, this example is not getting that. But yes, if you see here, this data, whatever that you see here, this is in uh, base 7 or base 8, this has been encrypted, okay? Base 64 to get that PDF into this text. So if you convert this, if you convert this,
Mm-hmm.
so you see, this is the actual information that is carrying in this format. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how you can attach your necessary changes into document reference. This is again just a short example that I've given. And there's ton of example that you can attach to this resource. Like it could be audio, it could be video, it could be image, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm. And is that not normated yet? I mean, normated,
Yes,
normalized.
it yeah. So it is not normated. If you see the maturity level is 5, which is a good, which is good.
Mhm.
So whatever is beyond 4, we consider that as a mature one, or we consider it as a good maturity level, like 80% or
Okay.
90% accuracy level. But still,
Okay.
it has a scope of enhancement. That's the reason it has been given as 5 as a maturity level
Understood.
scope.
Okay. Okay. I'm sorry if I have taken more time. I'll give it to the floor. Thank you.
That's fine, no problem. You have asked very much good questions. Perfect. Any other question that I can take for today?
Yes, I got a
Yes.
question.
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yes, I'm working as a functional BA for a small healthcare company. So
Okay.
I don't have any understanding about any of the technical concepts, including the DBs, SQL, MSQL,
Yeah.
uh, JSON, XML, and all these terminologies. I know these terms exist, but I don't have hands-on experience or anything like that. Apart from writing stories and criterias whenever it is very much needed, and that too after consulting with my technical team. So I wanted to understand how visible this course will be for me and how I
Yeah.
can proceed. Yes.
I'm glad that you raised this, Art. So you don't need to worry. So whatever courses that I am taking care, it's from scratch, and it's for all the folks who are not even technical too. So if you don't know anything about the terminology, you don't need to worry. I will be covering from base, so anyone, everyone can learn it. Okay. At the same time, about the XML, HL7, or JSON, or all the SQL, this is all the stuff that you'd be working on the production and the real-time development. But yes, to give you a hands-on on this, I would definitely give you some tech tips that you'd be able to incorporate in just 3 days. But to make the mastery level, you need to engage your time, you need to make a practice on, and then you'd be able to get the mastery on that. So practice makes perfect, right? So when it comes to ingesting those information that I'd be covering, it would not be too much vague with the technical and jargons. I would put in a simple English and in a simple non-tech form with the image visual, with the sample, so that you'd be able to incorporate and get up to the speed accordingly. So you don't need to worry. I will be taking care of that. That's where HKR has assigned me as a trainer.
Yeah. Thanks for the response. And another question I have is, uh, Will I get like freewares, free portals where I can create free accounts and practice all these tools and techniques, whatever is required?
Yeah. Yes, I will be sharing all that information I have to you. You don't need to worry. I will be giving the freebies about the connections, the software that you need to install, the development, the virtual development environment that you could install. You can make changes, you can do your navigation, you can get your hands on, and accordingly you can make a good switch if you want to, or you can make a good process into your current organization.
That will be really helpful. So, as I mentioned, I'm working as a functional BA.
Mhm.
So, what do you see how I can progress in my career by learning and practicing these skills? What the industry says about this? What industry is having, be it healthcare or IT software? Uh, can you please put some light on that?
Yes. So, since you are, so if you don't mind, if you could just tell me how many years you have spent into function.
It will be around 5 years or a little more than that.
Okay, perfect. So even if it's 5 year, I would definitely recommend to go with at least some basic technicality, because nowadays of AI, you don't need to worry about syntax and all that. You just need to make a simple English prompt. You'll be able to see the code. But yes, for you, I would suggest go for this training so that you understand the technicality of the development at the same time, the product knowledge, the business knowledge, and the process knowledge. This is again a very critical part that company is looking for, which we call technical product owner. And the salary is very good in the India market, US market, and UK market. You could also look for that, and even UAE market. Okay. So depending on your interest, depending on your need, depending on your grasping power while you are going through this section, you could decide by yourself. But you don't need to worry. Whatever I would be covering, this would not specific to development. This would be specific to development, business analyst, business processes. It should be specific to technical owner, technical product owner, or even just product owner. So it's definitely has that option, and accordingly you can select and choose.
That really makes sense. Uh, I don't
Um,
think any other questions in my mind. Yes, please proceed.
Okay.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
I hope you're good with that question, right?
Of course, of course. Thank you.
Perfect. Uh,